River, move!
Hearing Mona's warning, I ducked behind a car as a piece of abandoned clinic flew over my head. Mona sprinted over to me and slid under another piece of rubble that was launched at her. She stopped next to me, and I pulled her towards me as a bullet narrowly grazed her ear. We both put our backs against the car and took a quick breather. I winced as I heard the car next to us being destroyed and looked at Mona. So, this is a little more trouble than we signed up for, right?
You kidding? This is way more fun than the messenger runs we've been having to do.
Really? Nearly dying every other second is your idea of fun? I would hate to see what your birthday parties were like.
You and I both know I've never gotten a birthday party, and even if I did, it wouldn't be this dangerous. I'm just saying that it's nice to fight something that can really fight back for once.
Suddenly, I felt the car being lifted up from behind us. Mona and I looked up to see the robot holding the car above its head with one hand and aiming its cannon at us with the other. Mona whistled and I glanced at her. Maybe not this much, though. Mona shrugged and ran out of the way as the robot dropped the car. I held my hands out and created a wind barrier, which stopped the car from falling on top of me.
Little heavier than you accounted for?
Mona called out, amused. Oh yeah, definitely. It would have helped if I got an instruction manual with my tear.
Well, you didn't. Now are you just gonna keep talking, or are you gonna trash that thing?
Concentrating, I looked back up at the robot and threw the car at its chest. The robot was thrown backwards. I stood up, shaking my hands out as Mona approached. Trash enough for you? I asked.
I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Mona shrugged.
But you're not done yet.
As I turned, I caught a glimpse of the car flying back in our direction. I quickly drew a wall of concrete up from the ground and the car crashed into it. I held the wall up as the robot started pounding on it. Okay, I think I've got a plan, I said.
Then let's hear it,
Mona replied. I'll fight this thing and see if I can draw out technological genius. Gunner, once I do, you'll have one chance to sneak up on him before he realizes that you're not with me.
And how do I sneak past the giant robot to get to him?
I raised my eyebrow at Moa and she sighed.
Fine, not the time for jokes, I presume.
I nodded, and Mona rolled her eyes as she faced into the background. I turned back to the earth wall and let it fall to the ground. The robot came flying at me as she knocked me into a lamppost. I winced as I hit it and stood up shakily. Trashing this thing may be a little harder than I thought. Maybe it's time for me to call on Bayou to get some of the werewolf back up. I shook out my shock and looked up just in time to see the robot swinging its arm at me again. I aimed my palms at the ground and propelled myself up and over the robot with jets of water. At the same time, I quickly summoned Bayou, who appeared next to me. We both landed on our feet and spun around to face the robot. Bayou shook out his fur and looked around at the situation before nodding to me.
What do you need me to do, ma'am?
First, don't call me ma'am. We've talked about this. Second, is there a way we can fry that thing's circuits?
Bayou studied the robot as it turned around and then pointed his snout towards its chest.
I can see some sort of energy source behind that glass. If you hit it with strong enough jet of water, you should be able to penetrate its core, shutting it down.
Should? If I don't?
Call Zuru. He does seem to be more destructive type.
I feel like you mistake destructive with powerful.
More like you're the one mistaken, ma'am.
Dude, if I wanted sarcasm, I would have called the Dawn.
Bayou nodded and sat down at my feet as I looked at the robot, which had started to run towards me. I held my hands out, aimed, and fired 2 strong jets of water. They both hit the dead center of the robot's chest, smashing through the glass easily. The robot stopped dead in its tracks and started to spark up as the water flooded through the gears. I stopped the jets of water and the robot exploded. The force of the blast threw me backwards as I landed on my back in a small crater that the robot made from earlier in the battle. I blinked a few times and tried to see through the dust and smoke that was being swirled around in the wind. I was about to stand up when I heard a gun being loaded and looked up to see Gunner pointing it at me. I put my hands up slowly and nodded slightly to the remains of the robot behind him. You should build better weapons, dude. That thing was way too easy to take care of.
You seem to have had some trouble,
Gunner replied angrily. Hey, I wasn't trying my hardest, all right? Gunner glanced back at the sparking remains of his robot and started looking a little unstable. He whipped his head back around to see me and hissed.
That bot took me years to build. Took you less than 10 minutes to destroy it with your bare hands, when it would have taken any normal man an army to even slow it down.
I'm just that good, I guess.
Do you have any idea what you've cost me?
A really expensive robot.
I built it specifically to take down you, terrors.
Well, it did a fantastic job.
Shut up. You people don't deserve what you were given.
Oh, so now we're turning this into a privilege thing. Listen, buddy, if we didn't ask to be experimented on, I would have happily traded places with you if the option was given, but sadly, it wasn't. So get over it. Gunnar looked like he was about to snap at any second, and I know I'm not fast enough to block a bullet at point-blank range. I suddenly saw the air shift strangely in front of Gunnar's gun and sighed in relief. Gunnar looked confused for a second and then shocked as Mona appeared in front of him, seemingly out of nowhere. She knocked the gun out of his hand and hit him across the face. Gunnar stumbled back, staring at Mona in panic. Side note, Mona is known for being one of the scariest and dangerous terrors that the Resistance has ever recruited. Not just because she has a tear that allows her to turn invisible, but also because her tear includes limited dark matter manipulation. Mona glanced back at me, and I gave her a thumbs up. She nodded slightly and turned back to Gunnar with her hands in front of her. She started charging up a shot as she said,
You've got 2 options, Gunnar. 1, come with us calmly, or 2, get blasted.
I stood up and pointed to Gunnar. I'd go with option 1, dude. Gunnar looked like he was trying to cover up his fear with anger, but was failing miserably. I picked up Gunnar's fallen gun as I walked up behind Mona and crossed my arms as Gunnar's eye flickered from me to the ball of dark matter in Mona's hands. I raised my eyebrow and motioned to the ball. Gunnar sighed. He put his arms up and hung his head.
Fine. You win.
I grinned and Mona dissolved the ball in her hands. She took out a pair of handcuffs and went over to cuff Gunnar. I looked around the area we demolished and felt a little satisfied. What sector are we in again? R7?
R4, Ranger's taking care of R7. Why?
I just really wanted to absolutely destroy R7.
I feel the need to ask again. Why?
Because that's one of the sectors Mazda claimed.
Oh, that makes sense. For a second I thought you wanted to destroy a random sector, which is my play, so I was about to get defensive.
Once Mona finished cuffing Gunnar, she nodded to me and hit him over the head with his gun. Gunnar crumpled to the ground as I took the gun apart, scattering the pieces. Mona took out her notebook and flipped to the middle, scratching Gunnar's name off our list. So, who else do we have to pick up today?
Nobody.
I asked.
Oh, nobody.
What? Really?
Yep, Gunnar was it.
I thought Cardinal gave us more to do than that.
No, but I'm sure if you ask her, she'll give you more to do.
Okay, so you clearly don't know how she acts around anyone who isn't you, I explained. She doesn't like it when people ask her stuff.
Oh, come on. I'm sure that's not true.
You're only saying that because she's your girlfriend.
Don't pull the whole girlfriend card on me, Riv, or else I'll do the same thing.
She threateningly joked. You wouldn't dare.
Oh, I would totally dare.
Mona and I stared at each other for a few seconds before we burst out laughing. We both knew that neither of us really meant anything about pulling the dating cards. It was just something to get on each other's nerves. But Cardinal and Ranger's reactions are pretty funny whenever they come across us arguing about them. As we both calmed down, we heard a howl and looked up to see Bayou standing on top of a pile of rubble. He jumped down and walked over to us. He stopped in front of me, sat down, and dipped his head.
Well done, ma'am.
He commented.
For the love... Stop calling me ma'am. I am centuries younger than you, so please, don't.
If that's what you wish, ma'am.
Mona snorted a laugh, and I shot her a glare before saying, Bayou, the bane of my existence, return to the water. Bayou winked at Mona before disappearing in a swirl of water droplets. I crossed my arms and looked at Mona in annoyance. She ignored me and poked Gunnar with her foot before lifting him up.
All right, come on, Grapehead. Let's get him back to base.
Mona started walking towards our truck, and I followed in protest. I thought you were supportive of the purple hair.
I was, but I didn't think you were going to go emo purple. That's my brand.
I always thought emo and goth were two different styles.
I cannot believe we are having this discussion.
Hey, you started it. Mona threw Gunnar into the back of our truck and dug in her jacket pockets for keys. Once she found them, she tossed them to me and walked around the truck. I caught the keys and opened the driver's door. I jumped up into the seat and started the truck as Mona got in. I grabbed the seatbelt and buckled it, then glanced at Mona, who wasn't buckled. She looked at me and raised her eyebrow in confusion. I motioned to her seatbelt and asked, Buckled?
Oh my... Drive, emo.
I smiled to myself and put the truck in drive. Placing my foot on the gas, I drove through the remains of Sector R4 and towards home.